Alright, guys, so this is another Patreon request that comes from Wisdom Jack, who asked me to do a crossover between Loud House and X-Men. Wisdom Jack was originally, most of you guys would know, was the person who asked me to do the videos of the Superior Spider-Man and Ladybug crossover trilogy. So this was another trilogy he asked me to do. And that was X-Men and the Loud House. So let's get started with this story. So basically, in this story, we start out with everyone playing in the backyard. Everyone's having a nice fall day out in the backyard, but there's something wrong. Lily's gone missing. Lily has vanished and no one knows where she went. Like, literally, she's gone off she is literally out of the house and no one knows where she has vanished off to. Well, what they discover is that something was growing in the backyard. A small portal, a small grassy portal that leads to a certain island nation of mutants. Yeah, so a portal in Krakoa has grown in the backyard of the Loud family, and no one knows what the hell to do. Like, literally, no one has any idea what to do with this. And more importantly, all evidence points to Lily went through that portal, and in fact, she did. Because that was a portal to Krakoa, and it wasn't just to anywhere, it was right to Sinister's lab. It was right into Mr. Sinister's lab, and Essex finds the baby just in his lab playing with his stuff, and he's just like, he grabs it and he's like, a human child in my lab messing with my things. Well, off to the disposal unit with you, child. And that's when Cyclops and the other X-Men are like, Sinister, what are you doing? What you got? What you got there, Essex? Smoothie. Yep. So, yes. While all the X-Men are like, yeah, it's a human child. It's not a mutant. So how did a human baby get into the island of Krakoa? Like, that's something that is confusing all of the X-Men at the moment. Is like, how the hell did a human child get past everyone and end up in our little island nation? But meanwhile, what's funny is that there's this great moment where everyone's trying to debate what to do with the child, and Magneto goes, I'll handle the child until then, and everyone's like, gives him a look like, really? The guy who hates humans the most, we're gonna just handle the child? And Eric immediately goes, I'm not a monster. He's like, I don't murder children, thank you very much. I'm not a monster. And they're like, well, how about we give it to Logan? And Logan's immediately like, I heard that, nope, not me. And then it's decided who best to take care of the baby is out of all the mutants, is Jean. Jean actually takes to taking care of the child, and because she's had experience in different universes of being a mother, so she's immediately like, I can me and Scott can take care of the kid for a while. It's totally fine, until we find out how it got here, and more importantly, where its parents are. And it's like, Cyclops compares it to like keeping a dog. Like, it's kind of like, and even Magneto's like, congratulations, Summers, you have a pet. Meanwhile, back at the Loud family, they discover that there's a reason why that portal showed up in the first place. Because what happened was, Lisa was playing around in her lab and messing with some strange energy signatures that were coming from plants in the backyard, and basically finagled with it enough to open a portal to wherever it was. However, it wasn't big enough. It wasn't big enough for her to go through or send like. And whenever she sent like a probe into that little land, into wherever that portal ended up, what happened was, it would get destroyed. And Sinister brings this up to Magneto and Charles, where he's like, I've kind of been noticing that, like, there's been drones showing up in my lab, and then this kid shows up. I'm not saying, and he's like, I'm not saying that we should be prepared or be worried about the kid, but I'm saying we should be prepared for something and worry about the kid. So he's Sinister and the other members of the council are kind of considering that maybe this is something like a human invasion, but Jean is like, why would they send a baby? And he's like, and it's a harmless human child. And everyone's like, well, we've encountered stranger things in our time as the X-Men, so it could be literally fucking anything. So please, can you give us the kid back? Maybe we should keep the kid under a little more security. And Jean immediately goes, the first person who touches this kid is going to answer to me. And I don't think any of you want that smoke. And everyone immediately goes, nope. The only ones who could stand up to Jean are, of course, Xavier, Apocalypse, and Magneto. The three of them are like, even combined, could we really? If we got her really mad, yeah. So for now, we'll just keep an eye on it. Meanwhile, the Loud family is panicking to try to get their baby back, and what they end up doing is that Lisa opens the portal enough so Lincoln can get through, and Lincoln's big and able to crawl through, ends up in the lab, and Sinister immediately catches him, and he's like, I am going to rip you apart until I find out what's going on. Thankfully, by that point, Wolverine is in there. He just stops by, and he's like, hey, hey, Nate, I was just in the area, and I smelled a human, and look and behold, you're assaulting a human child. Wouldn't be the first time you've terrorized children. Why don't you give me that kid? So Lincoln is like, holy shit, I'm on Krakoa, the home of the X-Men. You guys are so cool, especially you, Wolverine. I'm kind of looking for my baby sister. And they're like, oh, huh. And he explains that that their sister is really a genius, and she invented something that allowed to open portals to your land. We swear we'll close it behind us. Can we please have my baby sister back? And they're like, yeah, here. So they give it back, but at the same time they're like curious about, at the end of the story, when they're examining they finally find the portal that Lisa created to Krakoa inadvertently. They're like, maybe we should keep an eye on that kid. So the end of the story is kind of leaving it open that maybe Lisa is a mutant with their super intelligence. So there you go. So anyway, there's your X-Men Loud House story. I'd like to thank Wisdom Jack for his continued patronage and for this story. And as always, if you'd like to have a Patreon request done, just hit the link below. Head on over to my Patreon. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.